I don't know if you are aware of this channel, but if you're not aware of this channel, I'm going to give you the link now so you can subscribe if you want. I really think you would love this channel, by the way, for those of you who are not aware of it. This channel is called Alex the History Guy. 33,000 subscribers. He says, I like history. Tell me about it. I think the thumbnails look fantastic. People told me it's really good for the historical information. Look at this. The English Middle Ages, the entire history, 1 hour video. Saxon Huskarl, Saxon Thane, Hastings. They reenacted the battle. Oh my gosh, look at that. Guys, let's be serious about this. I will provide some commentary and whatnot. I'm a Rome fanboy, so we're gonna check out the Legionary video together. It's only 8 minutes. Testudo. Alright, let's have a look. Let's see what he has got.
In 43 AD, legions of Roman soldiers came ashore to England in a second invasion, and this campaign, led by Emperor Claudius, was on a much larger scale than the previous invasion led by Julius Caesar. This Roman legionary wears a tunica, and typical Roman shoes called caligae. The legionary wears a subamalus.
No leather bracelets. 10 out of 10. Now I'm going to skip ahead to my favorite part, and we're going to do some Latin reading, translating from Vegetius, because I want to add to something he shows, and it's going to get really interesting. Check this out.
A classic feature of the Roman military was the gladius. This is a sword with a broad blade and a very severe point, designed specifically for stabbing and opening up large wounds with each thrust.
You should get a lot more views. I want to discuss this now, because this is the main point that I wanted to focus on in order to take it as an opportunity to clear a massive misconception. So we're going to go into the sources now. So I'll have to pause for a second, but here it is. So what have we got here? We've got Roman legionaries training for combat. If you notice, they're not using the issued scutum that they would use for combat in war, but they're using a version that appears to be made of wicker, and it is mentioned in the sources, as we will see. And then they're using these wooden swords. They are usually named rudis in Latin. They are used for training. Now, who among you, here's a question, has heard that the shields and the wooden swords used for training were double the weight? Who has heard that? He's not saying it, so this is not like a correction, but I do want to see if you've ever heard it. You know it's a myth, great. We'll jump into the sources, and we're going to read some Latin. The situation is the following, and I'll prove it with the sources. Are we told that the Romans trained with shields that were made of wicker, but they're double the weight of the standard issued scuta? Yes. It is mentioned in the sources, and that part is correct. Now, we don't know if this extends to the entirety of the 1,000 years between the Republic, the Kingdom, the Empire later, the Principate dominate. We don't know how widespread it was, but it is mentioned in the sources. So on the shields, I'm going to say possibly yes. But on the swords, absolutely not. How do I back it up? And why did this myth become a thing? The problem is English. English is the problem. I'll show you right now. Vegetius, the military instruction of the Romans, so De Re Militari, book 1, chapter 11, is the section where they take this information. In English, we read, they gave their recruits round bucklers woven with willow, twice as heavy as those used on real service, and wooden swords double the weight of the common ones. And then it tells us the exercises with these at the post, both morning and afternoon. Okay, so when you read it in English, objectively, yes, it is a bad translation. I'll provide the correct one. In fact, I won't just provide the correct one. We're going to translate it together. But I want to show you this. They were round. If you really want to be Vegetius accurate, the shield should be round, double the weight. We're told that they're given wooden swords, double the weight of the common one. Are you ready to jump into Latin, guys? Interesting. I appreciate you like it, but let's go. So, Vegetius liber primus. This is the original Latin. Don't worry, I will not make it boring. Okay, so let's identify these two sections in the original language. This is the section about the swords, guys, and it's gonna be a big one. Idemque clavas lignas dupli aeque ponderis progladis tironibus dabant. So, idemque means in the same manner, in the same way. And this is the big one. Clavas ligneas. Ligneas, if you are a Romance speaker, I know some of you are from Brazil, you'll immediately recognize this. Likewise, if you are Spanish, ligneas means of wood wooden. But this is the word they are using, klauas. It's not, what's the word for a Roman wooden sword? Rudis, exactly, rudis. Is it saying rudis? No, it's not using the word rudis. Does he ever, Vegetius, use the word rudis? Control F, rudis. Yep, it does. Boom, here. So he does have the word. It is in his book, but not in this section. So what does this word mean then? The word klauas means a club, like a wooden club, or a slat. With an A, not a U, you dirty-minded muppet. So, a slat, a wooden club. We're not talking about a wooden sword. We're talking about a wooden club. Dupli, double. Aeque, ponderis. So, ponderis is in the same manner of weight. So, double weight. Pro gladis, instead of the gladi, so the swords. Tironibus is interesting because tiro is a recruit in the sense of a beginner, right? So it's for the recruits, and then dabant, they gave. So they gave to the recruits, not the veterans, the recruits, they gave, instead of the gladius, made of iron, they gave them wooden clubs double the weight. And then it tells us how do they use them. Exercebantur, you can kind of see the stem even if you speak English only. Exercise, so they were training at palos, which means the stake. All right, all of that information was impressive, but you know what's even more impressive? The way today's sponsor teaches you how to code. Boot.dev. Boot.dev is a fantastic platform to learn programming languages such as Python and Go, and their mission is to teach you how to code in a fun and entertaining way. Their approach is in fact quite unique. Boot.dev teaches you how to code in a way as if you were playing an RPG, with experience, levels, quests, and even a global leaderboard if you wish to get competitive about it. To each his own. As an educator myself, I think the method is fantastic because it balances out theory with hands-on practice. Because let's face it, theory is great, but you need to sit down and type, which can be boring, but not if you do it with Boot.dev. One of the reasons why I'm really happy that they decided to sponsor this channel is because they are teaching you a applicable, tangible skill that can be used practically for your own career path development. According to Stock Overflow, the median salary for a programmer in the USA in 2024 was $100,000. Moreover, it's a role that it's always on high demand and it's either remote or hybrid, so it's really awesome as a job. Heck, if I wasn't already a content creator, I might consider it myself. And with their courses, you will learn back-end development at your own pace. Only a few of you know this, but the reason why I've been trying to learn how to code, I've been learning all sorts of things, Python, Go, I've been trying to become a software developer as a personal pet project. Not as a career necessarily, but because I want to learn to write video games. Thing is, what can be a passion project for me could be a career path for you. So, if all of this sounds interesting, click the link in the description below and use my code METATRON and get a 25% off your first payment with Boot.dev. Thank you for supporting my channel by using my code, and to the founders of Boot.dev for supporting this video. But going back to this, right? Because we see this in reenactment a lot. What are they doing? Are they training at the stake? No. So they should have a rudis. Because the rudis, which is lightweight, in fact a rudis is lighter than a gladius. If they are training combat, they use the rudis. The only case in which they use the wooden club, like a big freaking chunk of a branch, if you will, which is double the weight as the Roman gladius, is when they train not in combat, but at the stake. So the first section, the one about the shields, we're going to read this part here. I'm going to read it normally first and then I'll translate. So we've got scuta de vimine in modum cratium con rotundata dexebant, itaut duplum pondus cratis aberet. As you see, it doesn't say buckler, it says scuta, shields de of vimine, wicker. In modum, in a way, cratium. Cratium kind of means wicker work or a framework, can be translated or wicker. Con rotundata, this is where it tells us that it's round. And then texebant is they weaved it. So they weaved in a round fashion shields made of wicker work. And then ita ut duplum, double, pondus, weight, kratis, framework, aberet, had. So they had double the weight. Great. So this translation is correct. The only thing, not a buckler, it's a round shield, full stop. That's what it is. And this misunderstanding would have never happened if people looked at the Latin. Now, given, I know that I gave you the translation like this, and you're like, well, yeah, but you studied Latin, I didn't. Fine, Google Translate. I'm going to show you. Look at this. I'm going to take this, let's do like, for instance, this one about the shields. I'm going to take the whole section, boom, copy. We're going to go to Google Translate. I'm going to put it here. What is it, Latin? There we go. They wove shields of wicker rounded in the shape of bars so that they had twice the weight of the bars. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan that he uses bars, but it doesn't matter. It kind of gives you the idea. You can find even word by word if you prefer. So we can go into this. You're like, what does ligneas mean? You put it in here, wooden, and now you translated it. So you can clear this by literally looking up the word.
Designed specifically for stabbing and opening up large wounds with each thrust, maximizing injury and blood loss to dispatch an opponent quickly.
Wood is so much lighter. Yeah, that too. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have a gladius, think about it, even logically, if you have a gladius, one is made of iron, bone for the handle, and wood for the rest of the hilt, and then you have the exact same shape, but in wood. I mean, automatically, iron is heavier than wood. Now, given, we do have to keep this in mind, however, that wood, the density of wood is not the same between the modern period, the classical period, and the medieval period. So in other words, for instance, in the Middle Ages, we know that ash was denser. Hence, something made of ash in the Middle Ages and something made of ash today wouldn't have equal weight due to differences in density. But that's not really the point. You can get wicker to be quite heavy, but then again, it's wicker versus wood. Laminated wood, in fact, when it's a shield. So that's doable, at least. We'll see if it does happen in the sources. He's wearing the scarf, that's correct, and even the ring here is correct. This is great, because if you don't wear the scarf, the plates of the armor are going to produce chafing, and it's going to be horrible. The fact that he's wearing a sleeved tunic is historical, so absolutely correct. But the way I understand it for the literature that I've read, and if you look at iconography, it is in fact more common to see sleeveless tunics with the legionaries than to see sleeved ones. But sleeved ones still exist, are still part of the iconography, and it's difficult to really know the percentages because some could be artistic license. So this is great. What about the color? When it comes to colors and tunics, I do believe he mentions it because I did watch the video before, and I think he does mention the colors. But in general, this is fine, particularly if we were to believe the words of Vegetius, and we will read some Vegetius together. This would be associated with the Roman navy, particularly in Britannia. But in general, was blue expensive? It depends on the hue. A blue like this one, they could use plants like woad, and it wouldn't be too expensive to realize. But there were also other versions of blue which could have been expensive as a dye. And that's the same with red, by the way. Red can be cheap or it can be expensive. Love it.
Roman shoes called caligae. The legionary wears a subamalus, which is like an early version of a gambeson or undertunic. This provides a layer of padding for the plate armor which is worn later, and also helps cushion the impact of incoming attacks. The subamalus is laced tight at the sides, and features tassels around the bottom and the sleeves. These are called terriges, and while offering a small amount of protection, they are mainly a decorative addition. Despite popular belief, the Roman military did not all wear red as uniform. Indeed, many colours were present, most commonly beige, blue, green and yellow.
So it's Lindy Beige approved. Two things about this. So, of course, the subarmalis, which is a modern term, they did not use it in period. We don't really know how these were called. Maybe Thoracomachus, but we don't know anyways. Subarmalis, for modern reenactment, it's fine to use the term. This is a speculative recreation. We haven't got a clue. We know they wore it. They did wear it both under hamata, so male, or gallica, if you want to use the... because lorica hamata is also not a period term. Gallica is. It's possible that that's how they called it, because they did get it from the Celts. Anyways, continental Celts. So They did wear it. We know they did. We can see it in iconography, but usually you can see like these, the teruges coming under. You can see a little bit of this, so you know they're wearing something, but they're not taking off the armor, so you don't know exactly. So these are all speculative. I have one of my own. It's a little on the shorter side. Pretty cool. When it comes to the colors that he mentioned, he's right. In fact, I would say the most common color, if you were to walk into a Roman military camp, the most common color you would see is natural undyed linen, which kind of looks like a beige or a dirty white, but mostly a beige. So that would have been the most common. When it comes to battle, however, we are told by the sources, if we are to believe them, that they did wear red. Red was battle color. When it comes to Sons of Mars and whatnot. When it comes to blue, as we said, possibly with the Roman Navy. He also mentions yellow and green. Now, yellow, sure. Green is quite expensive because in order to produce green as a dye in the Roman period, you have to first dye your tunic yellow and then you dye it again to get it green. So the only evidence that I personally found, and if he watches this and wants to correct me, feel free, but the only evidence that I found points to the Roman palace guard wearing green. Roman military wearing green, I haven't found sources to back that one up, but again, maybe he did, and so that would be great, but that's what I wanted to share. Let's continue.
The soldier wears his plate armor, which is called a lorica segmentata.
Yeah.
We do not know what the Romans actually called this armor, as the name lorica segmentata was coined by the Victorians some 1,800 years later.
Good information.
The armor consists of many segmented plates, which are hinged and strapped together, providing a good amount of mobility while also providing excellent protection against both slashing and stabbing attacks, as each segment folds over the other, so there are no gaps.
Yeah. The fastening system is calcrise.
This reconstruction is based off a find from Calcrise, which is the famed site of the Teutoburg Forest massacre in 9 AD.
Shame on them.
Find as the earliest example of lorica segmentata ever discovered. As the artifact found was not complete, elements of the later Corbridge find has been used in this reconstruction. Some variants of Roman plate armor also featured segmented arm protection, which was...
Look at that scale. Oh, that looks gorgeous. Look at that scale in the background. What are you guys saying?
These additional pieces were developed during the Dacian campaigns, where the natives were using falx, a weapon similar to the scythe, with a curved blade which could sometimes hook over a shield and hit the legionary behind.
That's why they also put those cross reinforcements on the top of the helmet, to avoid penetration. Oh, sorry to interrupt him again, but I forgot. About the tunic, there is also another color, and that's bright white. Pure white, and they did it by bleaching the tunics, which they could do, but as far as we know they only use those during parades. So if you want to have a historically accurate triumphant parade of the military and the Roman forces inside a Roman city, they should be wearing white, like a nice clean white tunics.
The hinges and hooks on the lorica segmentata are made from brass or copper, and originals have often been found with stylized decorations on the brasswork. After the baldric, a second belt named a boltius is worn, which comes with jangly straps on the front called the cingulum. The cingulum is a rather curious component as their purpose is not yet confirmed, but it is understood that only soldiers were permitted to wear them, so they held a certain level of status.
Correct.
They weren't particularly useful as a form of protection, but some experts believe that they would have made a lot of noise during a military march.
That's English politeness right there, because I would have said they're completely useless as a form of protection, but he's like, they're not particularly useful because he's politer than me, more polite than me. Anyways, yeah, maybe they're used to keep the sword in place and the scabbard in place. That would be my guess, maybe. And with the hamata, if you put them very tight, they also help with weight distribution so that the weight is not on your shoulders, but it's at your natural waist. Maybe that's why the cingulum was a thing.
So they could have aided in psychological warfare, as the Roman legions would be heard louder and louder as they draw near. The legionary also carries a pugio, which is a small dagger with a similar blade to the gladius.
Yeah.
The helmet, named a gallia, is worn. This classic style of helmet, which we associate with the Roman Empire, was actually first worn by the Germanic or Gallic tribes, and the Romans later adopted it for their own use. This specific design is called the Gallic Type A, and is one of the older versions of this style of helmet.
Type H rules. Oh yeah, when it comes to his... So he's, of course, doing nothing wrong, but he's reading these Latin terms with an English pronunciation. Nothing wrong with it. The presentation is in English. Simply, for those of you who are curious, however, and you're like, but I'd like to know how it's pronounced in classical Latin instead, I will provide that in a minute after the presentation is over. Looking good.
The Roman military favoured a large shield called a scutum. This curved rectangular shape provided an excellent level of protection to the soldier, and was also used as a weapon in its own right. A legionary could use the metal boss in the centre of the shield to plough into an opponent, barging them back. But they could also slam the bottom of the shield down on an opponent's foot, debilitating them before thrusting their gladius into the injured opponent.
Now, I know for a fact that they must have got some shit, I gotta say it, for this, which is correct. They're absolutely right. As he was saying, it's correct for status. Like, imagine if you're not wearing your battle gear, you can still wear the cingulum on top of your tunic, so that if you are in a civilian context, people still know you're with the military. So the cingulum, the belt, does have those functions as well. Now, this is absolutely fine. I've already mentioned it on a few live streams. I know that some people, I just know that people probably, I need to check their comment section, because usually people, when they see this, you don't even know that you have to do, because this is supposed to be 9, right? So people are like, you don't even know it's 1, 10, and X. You don't even know that, and then it's perfectly fine. It's just 2 different ways to do it. This is the additive version. Simply, this one is more ancient. So this became a thing afterwards because it was more common. You needed to draw less lines. But this is simply a more archaic version to write 4. You can write 4 like this. So imagine the V is not here, and you're writing 1, 2, 3. In this version, you would do 5 minus 1, but in this other version, you would simply write 4, and it's absolutely fine.
They could also slam the bottom of the shield down on an opponent's foot, debilitating them before thrusting their gladius into the injured opponent. Again, the classic yellow lightning bolt with wings on a red background is only one type of shield design, and indeed we do not actually know how their shields were decorated, as so few examples survive.
Ooh, look at that one.
We do know that soldiers of the Roman period particularly favoured the pagan god Mithras, who was often depicted slaying a bull, so this animal may have featured on Roman shields. The pilum came in 2 styles, often a heavy and light variant. These could be thrown into an opponent in volleys, particularly effective at short range, but equally they were used as a melee weapon to thrust over or to the side of the shield.
Like in the Battle of Alesia.
Due to the shield being so large, leg or arm protection wasn't seen as necessary by the Roman Empire, and the soldiers were well trained in tactics to protect themselves in combat in a variety of situations, using both...
Yeah, the thing about the legs, in the Republic and in the early kingdom, you do find leg protection, and in the imperial period, you do find it with officers and generals, legati. With the common heavy infantry, yeah, it's usually gone. And I agree with him, probably due to the size of the shield. Although then again, shields were pretty big, even when they didn't have iron. They only had a wooden spina, that's what they call it, the spine, and in the Republic, but sure, I agree with him.
The pilum and the gladius effectively to dispatch an opponent.
This guy is awesome.
Again, despite popular belief, these swords weren't actually that short in comparison to other swords of the period.
Thank you. Thank you.
Later, the Romans adopted the spatha, which had a longer blade, often used by the cavalry units called the equitae.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say that, by the way. I mean, this one specifically, it's a Pompei, is it? Let me see. Is it a Pompei? Yeah, it's a Pompei gladius, so mines would be even bigger than that, and the gladius hispaniensis would be larger. But in general, it's not short when it's longer than my almost as long as my arm from here, to be honest. It's all a matter of perspective. It's shorter than medieval swords, but for the classical period, you do find sometimes swords that are longer than this, but generally speaking, There are also some technical, particularly when you work with bronze, that there are some technical limitations. And in general, this was deemed excellent because it was in pair with the scutum. So you are supposed to get really close anyways. It's basically kind of like it's the military professional version of using a shiv in a prison to stab multiple times. I mean, it's difficult to see it. I'm not going to finish because I want to encourage you guys to go and finish the original video. I did promise, however, that I was going to tell you a little bit about the Latin pronunciation. So what we have here, so he mentioned the tunic in Latin, and this one as well, the subarmalis, so then again, not a period term, so pronounce it however you want. When it comes to the tunic, the Romans in Latin pronounce it tunica rather than tunica in English. They say tunica and the U is long. The gladius as well, gladius, not long, it's short, gladius. So it has the little U, it means it's short. That's simple. Let me give you the link for this because it's an excellent website if you want to check Latin pronunciation, and it also provides phonemic vowel length. The armor would be lorica segmentata. So both the O and the E are long. There he is. Lorica. Lorica. So it's not lorica. Fine in English again before people get mad at me. Oh, Metatron, not everyone needs to know Latin. Well, that's because the empire is not a thing anymore. Otherwise, good luck saying that to the Romans. Anyways, lorica, I'm just saying it for the people who are interested. So, of course, that one is pilum. So the E is long, and the M is fully nasalized. Same for the shield, scutum. The U is long, the M fully nasalized, a bit like you do in Portuguese, rather than Italian, where I would say naturally, scutum, pilum, pasta. I'm exaggerating. But Italians, we do pronounce the M, and it's a modern thing. The Romans didn't. It was mostly a at the end of a word. So scutum, pilum would be imperium. It's how they pronounced it. The sword is a pugio, with the U being long. Pugio. So just to give the pronunciation in Latin on this equipment if you're interested, and also giving you the link to online Latin dictionary, which is phenomenal resource if you're ever interested in knowing how to pronounce things in classical Latin or reconstructed pronunciation. Also, don't forget to take advantage of the amazing offer by boot.dev. You will find a link in the description below, or you can use the QR code here and use my code Metatron. Thank you.